Ahead on WRAL Triangle and Two, we'll tell you what you need to know about the Eastern Conference Final between the Canes and Panthers. Also, we'll break down the best Carolina Panthers football games ahead of the 2023 season on the gridiron. But we start Luis Fernandez today. We get breaking news that Duke basketball guard Jeremy Roach will be back in Durham for the 2023-24 season. The floor is yours. Your thoughts, Luis, on this breaking news here on this Monday.
Well, there's a reason we record on Mondays, and I feel like it's because sometimes you have things like this happen right before we get ready to get started with, news happening. Jeremy Roach deciding to come back. They already had so much returning. Duke was in a really good position, and now bringing back Jeremy Roach, so you have your top four scorers back with Filipowski, with Proctor, with Roach, with Mark Mitchell. And you have almost all of your starters, 4 of your 5 starters, essentially, the vast majority of your starts throughout the course of the season. It's one of those things where the rich get richer. Duke has an opportunity now to have a really special season. There were already going to be a lot of expectations before this Jeremy Roach decision. And now he decides to come back, and you continue to have a veteran leader there who's going into his senior year. Someone who can run the offense, someone who's going to be able to create those shots that are a little bit harder. Essentially the way I look, one of the best things that Roach was able to do this year was to be that guy who would kind of dribble, penetrate, pull up, had those mid-range shots where you go, oh, man, how do those go in? Someone who can kind of create offense when the offense isn't necessarily working for Duke. So it's amazing. It's going to be so good for the Blue Devils. I think. They're already. I feel like the question we should be asking is, will Duke be preseason number 1? That's kind of where we're at. I know a lot of those way too early top 25s. I saw them, in the top 5. Just name recognition, name brand, the players who are coming back. It really would not surprise me to see Duke be preseason number 1, if not top 3.
Let me piggyback off this too, Luis. It's not just the 4 players that are coming back that you mentioned that will likely be starters. You also have a loaded recruiting class coming in. You have the number 2 recruiting class in the country. So how does Jared McCain, Sean Stewart, TJ Power, Caleb Foster get into the mix with this Blue Devils roster? This is where I caution you if you're a Duke Blue Devils fan, though, because we were probably saying a lot of the same things 1 year ago about the North Carolina Tar Heels, and that you had 4 of your 5 starters coming back off that championship team that made a championship appearance, and then they don't even make the NCAA tournament. So it's nice to have that continuity, especially getting the guard play in March. We talk about that when it comes to the conference tournaments, March Madness, Luis. Learn a lesson from your arch rival down the road, though, and that even though that this is a great news if you're a Duke Blue Devils fan, nothing is given for the upcoming season. It's the only point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, right? Because at least with that UNC team, you saw how deep of a run they made the year before. And a lot of that run, I think we've learned, was just a little bit of getting hot at the right time. But with this Duke team, they didn't go as far, losing to Tennessee in the NCAA tournament. So, you're already going to start thinking about March, even though it's May of, the year before. So it's going to be, how does this Duke team come together over that time? John Shire, I think that there was definitely pressure on him last year, but I do feel like everyone was like, hey, let's see how things go, give him an opportunity to kind of transition into it. And he had a lot of success, and he did really well last year. And so now just the expectations will continue to ratchet up, and the pressure is going to be on, but that's Duke. You know what I mean? Like that's what Duke is. They have those expectations. They have that pressure all the time. So I don't think it's going to affect them too much. It's just going to be, how does this team come together?
I thought that Roach was key in that 2022 Final Four run as well. So he has a lot of experience in big time games for the Blue Devils. His experience alone will be a benefit to this Blue Devils roster.
Well, and I think too, it's going to be so many of those key contributors last year, like Kyle Filipowski being a freshman. What does he do this year? How does he elevate his game? I think really my only concern with Duke at this point is just how do they adjust without having Derek Lively. Their defense was such a critical part of who they were last year, and he was pretty he elevated everything, and we saw that very first Duke UNC game, the way he just absolutely took over. So how do you replace that defensive production? But I mean, in terms of an offensive production, I am not concerned about this Duke team. I think they're going to be scoring a lot of points. It's just how do all the pieces fit together? Because there's a lot of depth and there is a lot of talent.
Let me say this very facetiously. I'm curious if Lively at any point, whatever team ends up drafting him, if he sees the Blue Devils go on a run and just wonder, should have I stayed back at school for one more year? But we know he's going to go and accomplish his NBA dreams, Lewis. I say that very facetiously.
Yeah, he's going to be okay. He's going to get somewhere and be just fine.
All right, let's go to the gridiron, Lewis,
yes.
where the Panthers schedule is out. We know the dates of each of the games that they'll play in for the 2023 season. We're going to do a draft back and forth, Lewis, and we'll go 3 games each. I will give you the very first pick. Weeks 1 through 18, week 7 is the bye. Weeks 1 through 18, the game you're most excited to watch on the Panthers schedule. You get the top pick, and we'll just go back and forth instead of a snake draft. We'll just go back to back to back to back.
Sure. I think the easy number one choice for me is the second game of the season versus the New Orleans Saints, September 18th, Monday Night Football. It's the home opener. Assuming Bryce Young is able to take control of this offense and become the starter, it would be his first home start. Like I said, it's Monday Night Football. The Saints are a really good team. I think that the Saints are going to be, right there. Like, I think they would be the favorite to win the NFC South this year. And so if the Panthers want to take that next step, and instead of just competing for the division to win the division and get back to the playoffs, I think you have to establish early by beating your divisional rivals, especially the Saints. That's just going to be a really fun environment more than anything.
Yes, and the Panthers opening their schedule with back-to-back opponents against their NFC South division opponents. So they'll open against the Falcons on the road in week 1, week 2 against the Saints. The reason why I scoffed, Lewis, that was my pick for number one top game.
It's easy. It's an easy one.
Sure. And you still have hope early on in the season, as all 32 teams do. Anything's really possible that early on in the season. Okay. Having said all of that, let me go with my top pick. I would then go with week 2 off the board. Let me go week 10, Panthers at Bears. And here's the reason I say this. Okay. The reason why you have Bryce Young number 1 overall was that monster deal with the Bears. You also want to beat the Bears because Chicago gets your first round draft pick for 2024. So there's going to be a lot made of which team won the trade, and you're playing on Thursday Night Football in prime time. So the entire country is going to be watching you. Week 10, you're about midway through the season. Are you a contender? Where are you at with potentially a rookie quarterback and starting the season in Bryce Young? I've got Panthers at Bears in prime time, given how big the deal was to be able to get the number 1 pick and draft Bryce Young.
That's interesting. Plus, I mean, Justin Fields is phenomenal. So It's going to be really interesting to see, 2 of the good young quarterbacks in the NFL going at it. That's a good pick. I like that pick. You can't go wrong with it.
I surprised you. I could tell by your facial expression. So it sounds like you're going to get your number 2 choice here.
I will.
No problem.
I will. So I don't know if this game is necessarily going to be like the best in terms of what we're seeing on the field, but I think the storylines involved, it just makes sense to me. My number 2 pick is October 29th versus the Houston Texans.
Okay.
So you have CJ Stroud, who for so long was argued as, he's going to be the number 1 pick. Oh no, it's going to be Bryce Young, that back and forth. CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are really good friends. So they grew up playing football together, essentially, and competing against each other. So that's just going to be a really fun dynamic. And I think you could be looking at a situation here too, where you have 2 teams that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks or so into the season. Those could be 2 interesting stories in the first few weeks of the season. I haven't looked at the Texans schedule, but those are 2 teams that are talented, that I think have the potential to continue to be on the up and up, coming from, being the top 2 picks in the draft. So that's more of a storylines perspective on that one.
I hope that both teams are savvy enough to start their young quarterbacks by that point, in that the Panthers have Andy Dalton and then the Texans have Davis Mills. And look, no knock on them. Everyone wants to see Bryce Young and CJ Stroud go mano a mano in that one. See, I didn't have that one as high because the Texans we're
They're
a
bad.
Davis Mills heave away
Yeah,
from getting the first overall pick. So I don't have much faith in the Houston Texans in the first place.
that's
So
fair.
remember, while the Panthers had the top pick, they had to trade for it. Panthers had the 9th pick. I just don't have faith in, look, I want to see CJ Stroud play too. They're inevitably going to be compared throughout the duration of their career, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. But I don't think the rest of the Texans roster is very good. I
That's
will
fair.
say this, though. D'Amico Ryans, their new head coach, coming over as the defensive coordinator from the 49ers, now the head coach of the Houston Texans. He should have this defense flying to the football. That should be fun to watch when he gets things rolling there in Houston. But Lewis, you took what was lower on my board. I do understand the narrative, though, between Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, 2 quarterbacks hopefully we get to see for the next decade plus.
All right, so what's your second pick then?
I'm going to go to week 17, and I'm going to go Panthers at Jaguars. And you've got a lot of storylines.
Oh, I
So,
kind of like that. I kind of
late
like that
in the
one.
season, are you in the hunt for the playoffs? I personally think the NFC South could be a division where a team right around 500 sneaks into the playoffs, like we saw an 8-9 Bucks team get in a season ago. Panthers and Jags came into the NFL together in 1995. Jags have a good young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. And then you get the gamesmanship too between Doug Peterson, who took the Jags to the playoffs in his first season. He's won a Super Bowl. And then you get him with Frank Reich too, their time together in Philadelphia. So you got a lot of different storylines. And are both of these teams in the playoff hunt? Where are they at in terms of the playoff push? I've got Panthers at Jacksonville. And oh, by the way, this late in the season on New Year's Eve, getting to spend that down in the Florida sunshine in the warm weather, that doesn't hurt things either, Lewis. I've got that as my second pick.
I like that because also I think too, whenever you have like those AFC, NFC teams playing each other late in the season, right? It's interesting because obviously you need the wins, right? Especially assuming the Panthers are in any kind of playoff hunt there, you're going to need most likely a dub in that situation. But whenever you have those cross conference matchups, I feel like things get a little bit weird, but also it matters a little bit less because you're not as worried about like conference records factoring in any kind of tiebreakers there. So I think it kind of lets the teams play a little bit more loose, if you will. I think that's gonna be really interesting. I do think Jacksonville's gonna be a very good team this year, so that'll be a good kind of end of season test. I could totally see that being a situation where it's like, well, the Panthers need to earn the playoffs. They got to go out and do it, So I could see that being the situation.
One other thing, too, the Jaguars have last year's number 1 overall pick in Trayvon Walker. So remember, this was a Jags team that was really down on its luck getting back-to-back first overall picks. And so Trevor Lawrence is really good. Trayvon Walker on the defensive side of the ball. I think this is a Jaguars team that's going to surprise a lot of people. And it's a measuring stick game to say, okay, Bryce Young's playing at this point. Is he better later in the season? Has he shown improvement compared to whenever he starts earlier on in the season?
Yeah, I like it. I think that's a good pick.
We each have 1 pick left, Lewis. You are up. Floor is yours.
This is really hard. This is really difficult at this point. But I am going to go with the late home game against the Falcons. That would be the week before Christmas Eve. I'm not saying a specific date because that day is still to be determined on the schedule. And part of that is there's going to be a lot of flexing opportunities for the NFL late in the season, like there always is. And if that's a situation where both of those teams are competing for a division title, that's a game that could get flexed in a prime time, or at least like into like the 4:00 time on CBS or Fox or whatever it might be. So I think that one's going to be big to me. I think the ceiling for the Falcons, I don't think is going to be as high as like say for the Saints or the Panthers in the NFC South. But based on at least what we saw last year with how much they're running the ball, based on drafting Bijan Robinson, so that it's really doubling down on all of that. The moves I saw them make in free agency, whether it be extending their offensive linemen or going out and getting, at least on paper, what could be one of the best secondaries in the NFC, which is, especially good because that secondary was bad last year. So bolstering themselves really, I think the Falcons are a team that's going to have a high floor. I don't think they're going to necessarily be like the best team in the NFC South, but I think it's going to be really going to be able to go out and compete against almost any team they play. So So what I'm saying here, long way to get to this point. But essentially, I just feel like that game is going to be very important for the NFC South. I could have just said that and moved on. But that's what I'm thinking. But it's tough because there are some really good games, really good matchups on this Panthers schedule.
That was literally my last pick, Lewis.
Was it really?
I'm not kidding you. Now, look,
Nice.
Atlanta, I know you've got 3 first-round picks, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. Is it Desmond Ridder? Is it Taylor Heineke? What's going on there? But what the Falcons are doing with Arthur Smith is saying, let's load up on talented skill position players. And if you can get them the football in space, in theory, each of those players should be very, very scary to deal with in one-on-one matchups. Because if you want to double one of those players, or if you want to put 8 men in the box to take out Robinson, like I look to see what the Panthers did a season ago. Tyler Algier, who was a 5th-round pick a year ago, has an 1,000-yard season, almost 5 yards per carry. I think Bijan Robinson's heck of a lot more talented. That's going to be tough for this Panthers defense to stop. If this Panthers defense is legitimate, this is a game where division opponent, you're at home late in the season when it really matters, when the weather's colder as well. If your defense is what it's supposed to be, your defense got to carry you in a game like this, Lewis.
This is a put up or shut up type game. It's like, all right, well, one of them's got to go win it. That's the vibe that I'm getting from here, unless the Saints completely run away with this thing.
See, I'm going to pick another Florida game for my last pick, but it's also a bit of a put up or shut up game, and you're tilting your head. I'm going to go here. Week 6 on the road against the Dolphins.
I was like, they play a lot of Florida teams, so I was trying to figure out which one was left.
Here's why. Okay, is Tua the answer? He's got 2 years left on his rookie deal. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle create matchup nightmares for any opposing defense. Now, J.C. Horn and company in the secondary, are you up to snuff? You talk about Von Bell coming over from Cincinnati, Lewis. Is he going to be able to provide a top on the defense to keep those guys in check and Waddle? And, look, when we call someone Cheetah, when the nickname is literally Cheetah and Tyreek Hill, it's that. But then the next week, you've got the bye week. So where are you at first 6 weeks of the year? And honestly, it might be 500. It might be sub 500 with the rookie quarterback. But then how do you improve after the bye week? What adjustments do you make after the bye week? It's more so, where are you at going into the bye? And then what do you do on the second half of the season? So that happens. This game happens to be down in Miami as well, Lewis. We get to go there, maybe spend a day on South Beach, chilling and relaxing. I'm going to take the matchup against the Dolphins again, just because high-flying, potent offense. And this is a Dolphins team where if Tua is legit, they should be – if Tua is actually the guy, and it's not just Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, Terron Armstead, the offensive tackle, is one of the best in all of football. The Dolphins should be legitimate, and it's going to be yet another put up or shut up game, a measuring stick game, Lewis.
I like it. I like that pick. I think that's good. That's also, to me, that's one of those games that just has the potential to be more fun to watch. You know what I mean?
So I think a lot of people are going to be giving us grief, Lewis, because you've got there's a lot of great games on the schedule, like Packers at Panthers on Christmas Eve. Do
you want to do honorable mentions?
Packers at Panthers on Christmas Eve. I think you've got that. Cowboys at Panthers in week 11 as well, like the week before Thanksgiving as well. How well I think about how well traditionally those fan bases travel. Those were also on my list too.
Well, I could see that Green Bay. I almost said the Green Bay game I was thinking about, because I think people are going to be paying attention to what Jordan Love has in Green Bay. I think that team is still solid enough. They're young, where I think they could be in wild card contention. And so if the Panthers are also in wild card contention, that could be a lot of fun too. I almost wish that game was at Green Bay, because on Christmas Eve, that would be a lot of fun.
Get the snow coming down at Lambeau.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's good. My 2 honorable mentions that I'm just going to throw out there, at Detroit. So the way we saw that Lions game go last year, where the Panthers just dominated them, just shellacked them, right? They ran for like 900 yards or something like that. It was crazy. I think that the Lions are going to be looking for a little bit of revenge in that situation. It's at Detroit. And the Lions are going to be opening up, the entire season playing the Chiefs. I think that Lions team is going to be very good, and that could be a good early kind of barometer test for the Panthers should they have a solid start to the season. And then I mentioned CJ Stroud and that kind of matchup. How about November 5th versus the Colts? We both talked a lot about how we see the potential with Anthony Richardson and how
Yep.
exciting it would be if he can put it all together with Indianapolis, having Josh Downs, who apparently he has a great connection with already. That's another one where it could be, I think, a fun matchup of two opposing sides of, okay, was it worth getting Bryce Young with the number one pick? Should you have tried to take more of a home run shot with Anthony Richardson? And I think the Colts could be at the very least competitive next year. That's another one that I kind of have circled as an honorable mention.
Frank Reich going up against his former team in the Colts as well. And I think that's going to be a Colts team that's very heavy RPO as well. If they can get Richardson, Jonathan Taylor going in the RPO game, running behind Quentin Nelson along the offensive line, that could be a very scary rushing attack in the 2023 season.
Yeah, that it would not surprise me if that ends up being one of the better Panthers games of the season for sure. But so I wonder how many times we're going to make this kind of error, if you will. But we go from the Carolina Panthers to Carolina versus the Panthers.
Yes.
What are we doing? But the NHL Eastern Conference Finals, we have Carolina Hurricanes beating the New Jersey Devils pretty handily, really shellacking them. I'll use that word again. For in the semis in round 2 of the NHL playoffs, and now they're playing the Panthers, who were an 8 seed, who knocked off the team with the best regular season ever in the Boston Bruins, and kind of made it a little bit closer than it probably needed to be at the very end there against Toronto, but they end up taking care of Toronto in the second round, and now we're just hanging out, waiting to see when this whole Eastern Conference Finals is going to get started.
Lewis, I got to say this. We were talking some before the pod today. Full disclosure, I'm going to take you behind the curtain. You can see the Wizard of Oz. The Canes punched their ticket to the conference finals on Thursday night. It is now Monday afternoon, and we still don't know when they're going to be playing the Panthers. What's going on?
I know they're waiting until the Western Conference gets settled out, but I'm like, what are we doing? Because the Panthers took care of the Toronto in what was it, 5 games, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the Panthers doing the same thing with the Devils, right? 5? Yeah.
Well, here's the thing too, Lewis. I know that games 1 and 2 are going to be at PNC Arena. When are we going to be at PNC Arena seeing playoff hockey action where you're 4 wins away from playing for the Stanley Cup, for trying to get back to where the Canes haven't been in years? Yeah. So it's just like, I'm ready. We are expecting to find this out either later today on Monday, possibly Tuesday, for what the conference final time and dates for best of 7 game series, but we still do not have that information yet as of the time of this recording.
Yeah, we're waiting on Stars and Kraken, which they're going to game 7 tonight. So my assumption would be, I'm not in the NHL mechanisms, if you will, but my assumption would be once that game goes final and we know with the Golden Knights taking care of Edmonton this weekend, I think that's going to be, once that goes final, we'll know for sure. So, yeah.
And
I would say Wednesday, but at this point, I don't know if you could announce hey, by the way, the conference finals start tomorrow. I don't know if that's something you could do, because assuming they get announced late Monday night into Tuesday morning type thing. I don't know. It's interesting.
It'll be the first time the Canes and Panthers have played in the postseason as well. So you're creating a new rivalry, if you will, Lewis. And look, the story all season long with the Canes has been, this is your 5th consecutive playoff appearance, got a lot of injuries to a lot of key players, and here you are, you're still fighting, you're still scrapping, you're still standing. I really think the Canes are in a good position. I also think that they benefited from an easier bracket. That's part of it. And it's just you've got to get a little bit lucky to go on a deep postseason push. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, I mean, that's the whole reason why you wanted to win the Metro division in the first place, right? Is so that you didn't have to face the Rangers early on. You could let the Rangers and the Devils kind of, beat each other up, and then you get to face the Devils, who were a little bit beat up going into it. And, Boston's on the other side of the bracket, and lo and behold, the Stanley Cup playoffs chaos unfolds and the Panthers beat the Bruins. You got to beat who's in front of you. And so that's what the Hurricanes have done. They've been the most consistent team the entire postseason. Really, the only game where you were like, was the 8-4 game 3 against the Devils. And everything else, they've been very consistent. So, they things have fallen their way. throughout these playoffs. And so the two hockey powerhouses of Florida and North Carolina facing off in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's going to be interesting. The Panthers are kind of giving me team of destiny type vibes a little bit, which is a little bit nerve wracking. But the Hurricanes, I think, have the best home ice in the entire playoffs that are left, and just in general, even going into it. So it's going to be hard for Florida to steal a game or two in PNC. So we'll see. I'm excited for the series to get started because it's going to be a good one.
Absolutely. And that 8-4 game, Lewis, my final thought, it's like you lose a game where you score 4 goals. That's like in football where you put 40 up on the scoreboard and you still end up losing. So I cannot wait to see this series get underway. And it's like you're 4 games away to where it's like down to the final 4 teams, 2 teams per conference and everything too. And I just wish we had more information to give the people, our loyal listeners and viewers, Lewis.
Yeah, we'll see. Keep your eyes peeled though to WRAL, WRAL.com, WRAL Sports Fan, the WRAL app, because once that schedule does become official, we'll be sure to post that and make sure that's available to you all.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts before we sign off here, my man?
No, man. I'm excited to see what happens with the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the Canes they've been so resilient. They've been so much fun to watch. It's going to be really cool to see it all unfold in this, hopefully for the Canes, penultimate round.
For Luis Fernandez, I'm Mark Bergin. Thanks for watching WRAL Triangle and Two. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you're listening on YouTube, tap that subscribe button on the 99 Fan YouTube page. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care. So long, everybody.